It was January 2025, and the biggest star of the last 10 or 15 years in Brazil was returning to his childhood club, Santos. The promise was the recovery of a Brazilian idol so he could prepare for the 2026 World Cup, his last World Cup for the country, at 34 years old. But 8 months later, what dominated the news was a journalist making a dark claim about his personality. According to the source he consulted, Neymar is a whiskey and energy drink addict, who smokes hookah and goes to sleep at 4 or 5 a.m., and behind the scenes, journalists whispered that this really seemed to have some truth to it. Despite lackluster performances at the clubs he played for in the last 3 or 4 years, his presentation was anything but modest, and expectations were sky-high. Here in Brazil, there was even controversy with journalists crying emotionally at his arrival, swearing that the same old star was coming home, while others found it pathetic. But clearly, the one who returned was not the same person, and those who cried were, for the most part, wrong. Still, with so much hype surrounding his return, even the harshest critics decided to wait and see, and it didn't take long for the truth to start showing. After many injuries and a frightening decline, that boy who once dazzled the world and put up absurd numbers with the Brazilian national team is no longer the same. That goal against Croatia seems to have been one of his last trump cards in the green and yellow shirt. As a Brazilian, it hurts to say it, but the Neymar we knew is gone. We now witness the depressing return of Neymar to Brazilian football. But first, how about you leave a like to support my work? There's no better place to start. If you want to criticize a footballer, look at what he does on the pitch. I don't know about your country, but here in Brazil, there's a big nostalgic group that dares to say Brazilian players no longer stand out because of personality. The superficial idea is that a great player has the typical personality of a partygoer, a macho man, someone who enjoys nightlife with women, wakes up, and shows up at the match to score and solve the game. But unfortunately, that idea doesn't seem to hold up anymore. If Neymar isn't standing out on the pitch, something is certainly missing, and clearly, much of that something is the extra dedication outside of training, outside the pitch, what we call a real athlete's lifestyle. Let's look at the practical reality. Neymar re-debuted on February 5, 2025, and up to now, at the time I made this video, Santos has already played 39 matches this season. Do you know how many he took part in? Only 21. That's just over half, 53.8%. In numbers, 6 goals and 3 assists. Do you think that's the stat line of a player of the level he once was? It's impossible to ignore. 3 injuries this year alone, on top of many older ones that have impacted his career more than Ronaldo Nazario's, plus missing 4 out of 5 derbies played. That shows something is wrong. I repeat, Neymar is no longer the same. Beyond the spreadsheets and stats, journalists read it clearly. The talent still flashes, but his body limits him. In his comeback, Neymar himself said he wasn't 100% and would need games to get there. 7 months later, the picture is of flickers and pauses, a grade 2 thigh injury, weeks estimated out, and treatment handled mostly by his private team, reducing the club's autonomy. There are even rumors he won't play again in 2025. Tactically, analysts saw a classic number 10, capable of putting others through on goal, but without consistent intensity off the ball, meaning it's impossible for him to perform well at a European level, let alone World Cup level. In the season's big picture, his absence from key derbies and the traumatic 6-0 thrashing Santos suffered against Vasco, a team with no notable technical highlights today, became historic and shocking milestones of a comeback that, so far, lives more on expectation than continuity. To make matters worse, Santos was eliminated from all major competitions right at the start of the season, knocked out of the Copa do Brasil by a second or third-tier team. What's left for Neymar and his crew is only the Brazilian Championship, the country's main league. And even there, Santos has just one objective in 2025, to avoid relegation to Serie B. For a big club, the one that produced Pelé, this is a depressing path. Controversies, excessive talk, and off-field life. Right after the initial euphoria of his Santos presentation, the news cycle quickly filled with off-field noise. First came lawsuits involving his personal life. A young woman claimed she had been involved with Neymar at a party in early 2025, then backtracked, saying she regretted making it public. But the damage to his image was done, and yet another lawsuit landed on his record. On another front, his love life turned into a soap opera. His partner Bruna Biancardi traded indirect jabs with influencer Virginia Fonseca, very popular in Brazil, and Neymar jumped into the middle of the conflict by posting a regretful song in his stories. That was enough for the press to treat it as front-page-worthy drama. Neymar, for his part, didn't stay quiet. In lives and interviews, he vented, "On the pitch, I deliver." The statement laid bare the central conflict of 2025. When the numbers on the pitch don't hold up, every off-field detail takes on disproportionate weight. One of the most debated episodes of Neymar's return was also off the pitch. During a decisive phase of the São Paulo State Championship, when Santos faced Corinthians in the semifinals. He missed the match claiming physical discomfort. Nothing unusual so far. It happens to any athlete. The problem is that, during the same period, images circulated of him partying at Carnival in Rio de Janeiro. The backlash was immediate. Journalists questioned his commitment, and fans flooded social media with criticism, accusing him of prioritizing partying over the club. The episode became a symbol of the distrust that part of the fans, once his unconditional supporters, started feeling about Neymar's seriousness in this new Santos phase. And here comes a curiosity that became a meme in Brazil. Every year since 2015, Neymar has always been suspended or injured at least once during festive dates. From 2015 to 2019, always injured around his sister's birthday parties. From 2021 to 2025, he was suspended or injured during Carnival, New Year's Eve, and even during his own cruise party, an event that lasted several days, with a huge media splash in Brazil and many celebrities attending. At that time, the Brazilian star was injured, and yet went on the cruise, drawing non-stop criticism from commentators, who rightly pointed out that an athlete with an injury should be resting. The question was, what's Neymar's priority? Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be football, Ancelotti, and the future in the national team. For Brazil, the big question is whether Neymar will be fit to play in the 2026 World Cup. Coach Carlo Ancelotti, who took over the national team, has been cautious. He acknowledges Neymar's talent but insists he'll only count on him if he's 100% physically ready. In an interview, he emphasized that in modern football, talent isn't enough. You need to be whole. Neymar, in turn, contested his absence in September 2025, claiming he was left out due to a technical choice. The fact is, he hasn't played for Brazil since October 2023, when he was injured against Uruguay. Analysts are divided. Some wouldn't call him up today due to lack of trust in his form, while others consider the Seleção unthinkable without him. Luckily, Brazil now has a coach as big as Ancelotti, because the previous ones, all Brazilians, bowed to Neymar, building projects and squads entirely around him. That, of course, was one of the main reasons for the national team's recent failures, almost missing the World Cup. Yes, at one point, that was a real risk. Retirement? Or is hope the last to die? Some journalists claim Neymar already plans to retire right after the 2026 World Cup. But early retirement can't be ruled out. Neymar himself revealed he thought about quitting in 2023 after tearing his knee ligament. When he returned to Santos in early 2025, the idea was to stay 6 months in Brazil, regain form, and get back to Europe. But that plan is already gone. At the same time, Neymar's presence doesn't seem to contribute much on the pitch, and meanwhile, he earns around $4 million in salary, an absurd amount by Brazilian standards. Behind the scenes, his father, a very strong, to not say excessive, figure in his career as his agent and owner of NR Sports, is working on building a new training center for Santos, while rumors swirl that they plan to buy the club itself, even with accusations that they are intentionally putting the club in debt to supposedly buy it cheaper. Financially, there's still no clear balance of what weighs more. On one hand, his return brought sponsorships, shirt sales, an increase in fan memberships, and even boosted TV rights value. But with no sporting returns, the risk of losses looms large. Even so, expectations remain sky-high. For some, Neymar is still Brazil's main hope for titles. For others, he's done. What we see in 2025 is an undeniably talented player, trapped between injuries, controversies, and personal choices. That's the drama. Neymar could end his career with flashes of brilliance and one last World Cup, though not as a protagonist. Or he could surprise everyone and rise again, against all predictions. Time is short. Hope may be the last to die, but if Brazil wants to be realistic about results, it's best to set expectations about Neymar to zero, if not below that. And from there, anything else is profit. We've reached the end of another video here on the Brazilian Angle channel, a space 100% dedicated to football from a Brazilian perspective. Did you enjoy it? Then how about leaving a like and subscribing to the channel? That way I'll be able to keep going in the long run. Big hug, bye.